What's good, everybody? My name is Valor, and welcome back to the Armory. And what if I told you that this is the new future of the competitive blaster meta? Let's talk about it. And I do admit that was a bit of a strong statement, but this is something to be very excited about. This is the XYL KM-9 Unicorn. It is a fully injection molded nylon blaster with metal internals, and it is very competitively focused because I did a lot of consulting for this thing. If you remember a while back, I did a video on the XYL ARP9, which is essentially a gel version of a 9mm M4. Well, after that video, I was quite impressed with the quality of the materials and such, and the build quality of the blaster. So I asked XYL if they would consider building a dart blaster, and they accepted. And this is what came of those talks. And this is about the third or fourth time I've tried to film this video, because every time I try to talk about this blaster, I just end up rambling and, waffling on about it because I love this thing. It is quite literally my new sort of competitive primary for the sort of mid-tier FPS range. But I think the easiest way to sort of break this whole thing down is to go one thing at a time. This thing is entirely molded in nylon, which is great for durability and strength. And this thing is not put together like a typical toy blaster like what you'd see with like the Harrier, the Phoenix 2.0, or any other Nerf blaster on the market. This thing is more constructed like an airsoft gun. Rather than being a clamshell thing, this thing is monolithic, with a single piece upper and lower that are held together with these takedown pins. Now, some people will be annoyed by the little dangling, shaking rings. You can take them off if you are really annoyed by them, but I think it really helps take the whole thing apart. And we will talk about taking it apart and taking a look at the internals in a bit. It is a standard 16mm barrel with the 13mm ID. The earlier version of this had a much tighter inner diameter barrel because it shipped with a dragon-like dart. But I suggested switching to a 13mm ID to make things a bit more consistent and make it a lot easier to feed the darts that are more easily available here in the States. The pump grip simply attaches to the Picatinny rail on the blaster. It is a slightly angled forward and then angled downward. It's odd, but it's actually a very smart design because your hand does get quite close to that magwell. And yes, that is a spring return on the pump. Now, there are also other priming options for this blaster. You can actually remove this top rail for optics or whatever, and underneath there is a small plug that you can pop off, and then you can add a sliding rail to do a top hand slide prime, which, if you are in a certain situation and you want something underneath the blaster, say you wanted something like a Pico Booper or something like that mounted underneath, having top prime is actually quite good. The grip is a standard sort of M4 motor grip, which, as you can see, I swapped out for an A2 style, but the grip it comes with is this thing. This looks odd because it has an end strike attachment point attached to the bottom, which you can actually remove a plug in here and remove it if you don't want that as your grip option. But the weirdest thing about this end strike attachment point is, if you look, that's a bottle thread. So, if you are very used to something like an HPA blaster with a bottle off of the bottom of the grip, and you like that style, you can actually use a soda bottle, and you have a wide variety of choices when it comes to bottles to use with it. If you're used to that and you like wearing, say, a full dye mask, this keeps it much further out of your way, and you can tuck it under your arm, you can, tuck it wherever, and it can be quite comfortable. Now, durability and strength will vary depending on the bottle, but it's just another option. Now to the magwell. A lot of these Chinese blasters come with proprietary magazines, and a lot of people hate that, which I understandably do as well. I made firm whenever I was telling them the features it needs, that it needs to be Talon compatible, and it is. The mag it comes with is a very nicely made Talon clone that is very easy to take apart and clean. The mag spring itself holds on the bottom plate. There's a small button here, you push it in, and then you can slide the bottom plate off, and then you have access to your spring and your follower and everything, which means post games you can very easily take these apart, clean them, relube them, whatever. And reliability is paramount for a competitive focused blaster like this. The magazine release is a simple side button style, which some people may like, some people may not. A lot of people will prefer a flappy paddle that they can hit with their middle finger or whatever, but the fact that you can actually just press it with your index finger means you can do the whole John Wick flick or whatever. Moving on to the stock, this is a simple collapsing PDW-esque stock. There are 3 positions. You got fully collapsed, there's a midpoint, and then fully extended. And unlike a lot of worker stocks, this thing does not have a screw to retain the stock, so you can't just drop it, which that might be something I have to suggest to XYL to add in the future. That does mean it's very easy to take off. Say if you wanted to run this for competitive and you don't really need a stock, because the prime on this is quite light compared to a lot of other blasters for the performance it gets. And speaking of performance, this thing gets around 130 to 140 out of the box. And that is mainly due to the fact that out of the box, the plunger tube has a slot cut into it. And that's because it is optimized for the shorter barrel. Mine, however, has one without the slot cut into it, which is a holdover from this being a very early production sample. I've mentioned this to them, so maybe they will offer a high power kit that comes with an unslotted plunger tube and a longer barrel, but that is yet to be seen. But the fact that mine doesn't have the slot in the plunger tube means I can show you the full power of this thing. This one, with the stronger spring it comes with, and even the shorter barrel, gets about 150. And an O-ring swap will make it much more consistent, and this thing is perfect for that 150 mark. It is much smaller than a Nexus. It is pretty much the same exact size as an Eon, but in my opinion, it is a far superior blaster. Let's take a look at the internals. 2 pins, and you're in. This thing does take down much better than even the C to S, because 2 pins, pull it apart, there you go. You have access to your plunger tube so you can more easily relube it, whatever. And the spring. And this spring is decently strong. It is very similar to K26, maybe a bit lighter. I'm gonna have to try this thing with a section of K26 and see how hard I can get this thing to hit. And another thing that makes this blaster great is, you see all this orange stuff right here? That's all painted metal. It's a zinc alloy, which is very commonly used in airsoft and gel blasters, but the trigger box is also entirely metal. And see that little tab right there? That's a slam fire catch. This blaster has slam fire, which I used to great effect at the Raleigh Nerf Club War last month, or earlier this month. Well, actually, no, yeah, technically this month. I was holding down a Harrier user because I was able to pop out of cover much faster with this thing and rush him with slam fire. And I'm not even doing cuts because I want you to see how quick it is to put this blaster together, because that is beautiful. And if you are the type of person who likes to swap their barrels very quickly, barrels are friction fit. I might make a version of the dart gate that has a set screw or something just to make sure your barrels are, snug. The barrel it comes with has this section cut out. That's because people were complaining about the bearings rubbing on their barrels and causing grooves. I honestly don't think it matters that much, considering it's inside the blaster and you're not going to see it. But this thing, just like the Harrier, has bearings on the pump, which makes it very smooth to operate. And yes, for those wondering, this does accept scar barrels on the barrel and everything. It is standard 16mm, like I said before. This is just a beautiful, beautiful blaster. And I would just like to commend XYL for accepting help from a foreigner, who asked if they could make a thing. Well, they made a thing, and it is great. Now, if you're looking at this and wondering how the heck do I get one of these things, it looks awesome. You'll be able to get these from Out of Darts, Containment Crew, and Frontline Foam. I actually recently sent their product samples to them for them to either make a video on or just evaluate to order more. And the best part is, these are less than $100 MSRP. For that price, you get a lot in the form of a blaster. For a injection molded nylon body with metal internals, with slam fire, with Talon compatibility, this thing is going to be a very compelling option for the competitive scene. But honestly, there's not much left to say on this blaster because it is a simple concept with phenomenal execution. As ever, I wanted to thank you for sitting around and watching me ramble on this blaster. I tried my best not to gush, but I just couldn't help but gush. And again, I wanted to thank the patrons who are scrolling on the screen right now. Without them, I wouldn't be able to keep the internet going and everything, so I could continue to build blasters, upload videos, and all that, get in contact with these companies and these creators and designers for their blasters and stuff, so I could parade them in front of a camera for everyone to see. You have no idea what it means to me that people want to support me and my work. I appreciate everyone for being so patient with me while I make the video on this and do the testing and everything for XYL. And this is that thing I was hinting at a couple months ago about something big coming to the hobby. But if you've found my channel and you want to help support my work and what I do and what I'm bringing to the hobby and everything, you know what to do. There's a link down below if you want to help. Even at $1 a month, it helps out massively. And you get access to the Patreon-only Discord server, you get access to some files I've made, and being on the Discord server is the most reliable way to get in contact with me if you need help with something, or if you want priority when it comes to getting commissions and stuff. Again, that is the best way to do all that. But again, as ever, mine is Valor. Thanks for watching.